My name is James. I'm here for Myrtle Beach Games in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And today I'm going to open a Ravnica Allegiance pre-release pack. This is going to be for the Simic Guild. Simic is blue and green for those of you who don't know. Every guild has a special mechanic that's unique to their guild. Simic is adapt. Kind of fits in with their philosophy of doing kind of whatever they need to come out ahead in combat, come out ahead in tempo, close a game out, prevent your opponent from doing things. Adapt is always going to have a cost on the card, a mana cost, and then there's going to be a number after it. When you pay the adapt cost, you're going to put that many counters onto the creature. There are also a lot of cards that have bonuses when there are +1/+1 counters on them. One thing to note though is with adapt, if a creature already has a counter on it, either from previously adapting or from some other card that gave it a counter, it will not get any more counters. With that being said, we are going to kind of dive right into this. This is the pre-release pack after removing the outer sleeve. Each pack is going to contain 5 packs of Ravnica Allegiance. As well as a spin down, and I believe these match the colors of the guild and all have the guild symbol on them. There's going to be a token loose in every pre-release pack. On the back of the token is a super sweet code that will get you a free draft for Magic Arena. So that's something to look forward to. And the last thing in each pack is a seeded pack. In the seeded pack there's going to be one promo card that is going to be guild specific and be foil with a date stamp on it. So this one is Growth Chamber Guardian. This is one of my favorite cards in the set, actually. I'm really excited to play with this in Standard. You can see the adaptability on there for 2 and a green. This has Adapt 2, and it says right after it, if this creature has no +1/+1 counters on it, but 2 +1/+1 counters on it. His other ability says that whenever 1 or more counters are placed on it, you may search your library for another card named Growth Chamber Guardian. So basically he goes to get a friend. It's a great way to get ahead with tempo because you're putting out a steady stream of what end up being 3/3s for, well, 2 mana and then 3 mana. It's a good way to get ahead with card advantage. They trade well in combat. It's an exciting card to build around. I'm pretty stoked for that one. The rest of the guild pack is going to have land that features the color of the guild. In this case it's a Simic Guild Gate, and they come into play tapped and add one of the guild's colors. This one is green or blue. Each guild has one. So there is our promo. Each guild also has a locket. The lockets kind of help fix your mana while you're playing the game. It's a 3 mana artifact that taps for a green or a blue, and you can pay 4 hybrid green-blue, which means a hybrid mana. You can use mana of either color to pay that cost and sacrifice it to draw 2 cards. It's pretty powerful and limited. This one in particular fits the guild's philosophy really well. It helps you ramp out early, and then later in the game when you're not having mana issues anymore, you can cash it in for some more cards. Aside from that, we have a Shark Dough Crab. This is definitely fits the guild's theme where they just kind of shove a whole bunch of creatures together and see what happens. Shark Dough Crab is a fish octopus crab. It also has Adapt, the guild's keyword. It's a pretty good rate for the creature itself. It's a 4 mana 4/4, and whenever 1 or more counters are put onto it, you can tap a creature that your opponent controls, and then it basically freezes that for the next turn. They don't get to untap it. We got a wall, another Adapt guy. These are just some uncommons and commons that are contained in the seeded pack, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on them. Growth Spiral I am pretty excited about. That's a card that I think is definitely has constructed implications. It's a green and a blue. For an instant, you get to draw a card and then immediately put a land from your hand into the battlefield. I have a sneaking suspicion that's going to see some modern play, as probably standard play as well. Another adapt guy, and that's it for the seeded pack. I'm just going to set those aside and move on to the actual packs here. Typically when I'm opening these pre-release packs, I like to sort them by color, because that'll help me later on when I am actually building the deck. I'll set gold cards off to the side. Electro Dominance is fun. And, we'll probably have some constructed implications as well. Anything that lets you cheat out a spell is probably pretty good, especially in Modern when there's cards that don't have a mana cost, so you can basically cast them for 2 mana. High Alert's another fun one. It's an enchantment for 1 colorless, a white and a blue. Each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. So blue has some creatures with big butts on them. Lets you kind of turn them aggressive instead of the defensive creatures that they normally be. Rare for that one is Precognitive Perception. Hey, a Godless Shrine. Shocklands are always good. I think those are Juan's favorite colors too. Ethereal Absolution. That card is a house in limited. It's a enchantment for 4 colorless, a white and a black. Creatures you control get +1/+1. Creatures your opponents control get -1/-1. Essentially, this makes combat almost unwinnable for your opponent. It also has an extra ability of paying 2 colorless, a white and a black, and exiling a card from your opponent's graveyard. If it was a creature, you make a spirit. Kind of incidental flyers are always good. They end up being 2/2s with this, so that's another good card. Unfortunately, it looks like the green and blue that came out of our normal packs isn't super hot. Normally when I am building a sealed pool like this, I tend to look for cards that pull me into a color pair. I don't think I really open too much that pulls me into green, unfortunately. So what I'm going to do is look through these gold cards here, see what the good ones are. That card is great. Those are both... This card is pretty good and limited. I'll put those in the Rakdos pile. Sort these guys out. Alright, so for Simic, we have a couple good gold cards. Galloping Lizrog is fun. In Simic, a lot of your creatures put counters on themselves. This can steal the counters off of all the creatures you control and doubles them, so you can get pretty big for the mana cost. Sharktail Crab, we talked about a little bit when I opened it up. It's a good creature for just on its face value, even without a text box, and the text box makes it better. Aeromunculus would see play also. That's a good, like same as the Sharktail Crab. It's good even without the adaptability. I don't think we're in Simic though. Let's take a look at these blue cards, see if we're anything in here that pulls us into blue. Got some good tempo spells in here, but nothing super powerful. Set that aside. Same thing with green here. Even though this is a good card, it's not super fantastic and limited when you only have one of them, because the main benefit of this card is going to find more of himself. As a rare, you're probably not going to get more than one. That card's pretty good, but I think we really don't have a whole lot in green either. We'll set these guys aside and look at Rakdos next. Rakdos is red-green. We have some good removal there. Frenzied Erynx is good. Zertag Goblin is good. We have there was a couple good green spells in there, so we'll keep that in mind and take a look at the red here. Really don't see much in here that's pulling me towards red also. We're going to set both of those aside. Unfortunately, I don't think any of those cards are going to do us much good. Which also kind of pulls us out of Azorius, even though we got the butt fight card. I like that card. This Azorius Grand Arbiter is really good also, especially with the high alert. It's a 5 mana 2/5 Vigilant that can't be blocked. So when you put high alert out, it's dealing 5 damage instead of 2, but I don't think the rest of our blue was super good, so we're gonna get rid of those guys. And I think we're left with Orzhov. Once I've kind of found a color pair, like I said, I'm pretty sure I'm Orzhov. We have some really good Orzhov gold cards here. Then I start laying out my creatures by converted mana cost. Because your curve is going to win you games if you have a good one, even if you don't have any powerful cards. So that's what we have for Orzhov. The Resolute Watchdog is pretty good. Saves a creature, has some good early defense. The Panther can, for a black mana, gain Death Touch and trade for one of their bigger creatures later on. The Thirsting Shade isn't super powerful. It's a 1/1 lifelink for 1 mana, which isn't the worst card in the world. And you can pump it, but it's kind of expensive to pump. It'll probably see play in this deck, but it's really not something that's going to pull you into the colors. Hero of Precinct 1 is great if you have a bunch of humans. I haven't looked to see how many humans we have yet, but hopefully... I'm sorry, not humans, gold cards. And we actually do have some pretty good gold cards, so that'll be a card to look for. And actually, that makes us probably be able to play this Footlight Fiend. It's a hybrid mana, so you can spend a black or a red to cast it. It will trigger the hero and is a good early drop, so we'll probably include that guy too. The Caracal I'm not super excited about playing, but it fills the curve. It's an aggressive creature. This deck looks to have a slightly aggressive slant to it anyway, so we'll leave that in there for now. Again, those guys are just kind of fine. They're just fillers. That's pretty good for pumping the team. This guy has Afterlife. That's kind of sweet. Leaves a creature behind when it dies. Actually fits really well with this Undercity Scavenger, because when he enters a battlefield, if you sacrifice a creature, you put 2 1/1 counters on it, and you get to scry 2. It makes him a 5/5 scry 2 for 4 mana. It's pretty good, and if you sacrifice an Afterlife guy, you get a token for your troubles also. Grasping Thrills are good. Flyers are always good. It's a 3/3, so it's reasonably sized, and it has another ability where it enters and you drain 2 life and you gain that life. It's kind of good. A little bit of reach in the end game, and flyers are kind of hard to deal with, so they're pretty good. The Racketeers probably isn't ever going to connect, but if it does, they get to discard a card, which is relevant. Blade Juggler replaces itself, and if you have Spectacle, it's super cheap, so that's pretty good. And it's a human. Oh, that doesn't matter. That was not the card I was thinking of. Knight of Sorrows can help save you for a combat, has Afterlife. Watchful Giant brings a friend. The guy has Afterlife. Let's see how many creatures we got here. We got 19 creatures. Usually in limited, I like to run somewhere around 17, 18. Let's see what other cards we have in here that we're trying to play also. Ethereal Absolution I talked about earlier. It's fantastic. Final Payment is a really good removal spell. 2 mana, takes care of anything. Does have a drawback. You have to pay 5 life or sacrifice a creature or enchantment. We have some stuff with Afterlife, so it's not the worst thing in the world if we have to sacrifice a creature. Plus, hopefully with a hero, we'll be generating a couple creatures. So that's really good removal. Another black removal spell. Not super excited to pay 5 mana for it, but it is what it is. Removal spell for small creatures. An aura that I'm not really excited about, and a sideboard card. So maybe we'll play this thing. That leaves us with 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Typically for a seal or draft deck, you're going to want to play somewhere around 17 lands. If you have a really high curve, you might want to up that a little bit. If you have a really low curve, you might want to cut a land. We do have a low curve, but we also have a whole bunch of 5 drops, so I'm going to say we're probably pretty stuck on that 17 land, which means I have to make a cut, and I think it's going to be this Sentinel's Mark. I don't think it's going to make the cut. It looks like a reasonable sealed deck to me. I think that's what we're going to go with. To build a mana base, real quick, the easiest way to do it for me, typically I get a pretty good result when I do this, is to count up all the pips in the corner. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 black mana symbols on our cards. So we're going to want somewhere like 6 or 7 black sources. You count all those up and you divide by 2, and that should give you the number of sources that you want to run. So we want like 6 or 7 black sources, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 white mana symbols, so we want 7-ish white sources. 7 and 7 is 14. We need 3 more. We're a little bit heavier on white, so we're going to do... what's that come out to? 14. We're going to do 9 plains and 8 swamps. I think that's 17. Let's see if we got any Orzhov Guild Gates here. We have 1, and we have this Godless Shrine. So I will cut a plains and a swamp. We'll end up with 8 plains, 7 swamps, a Godless Shrine, and an Orzhov Guild Gate. And I think that's probably a reasonable seal pool. It kind of stinks that we didn't get to go Simic, but you kind of got to do what the cards tell you to do. Unfortunately, I think the cards told us to go Orzhov. So that'll do it. James Karsten, Myrtle Beach Games. Have a good pre-release.